Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge and welcome to a really fun video that I'm doing today. So I wasn't going to do these, but then I realized that I wanted some more content for the end of the year, and so I was like, what's some other videos I can make? And I was like, you know what is really fun is because I read so many books this year and it was so hard to narrow it down to a top 10, which I don't know if you'll have seen that before or after this. Probably before, because I'm getting really itchy to share that video. So I'll probably share it soon because I'm a maniac like that and I just can't hold stuff back. BT dubs, I'm just going to show this off. My friend Lourdes is starting a shop January 4th that's called Literary Enchantments. And so she sent me a couple of her mugs and I've been using one every day. But this one is dark romance, and you may see a couple of these books in my list today. But this one has some amazing book covers on it and it's just fucking phenomenal. It's so beautiful. I don't even drink like a ton of hot coffee. I'm actually more of like an iced coffee person, but I'm making an exception right now. So you should follow Literary Enchantments on Instagram, and I'll put the link down below. She is not, I don't have a code or anything for you for that, but you should still check her out because it's fantastic. But anyway, let's get started. This one is going to be my top standalones of 2020. There will also be a favorite series of 2020, but this one's going to be standalones. And this was actually pretty hard because I read books that are like, I love to binge series. So making my like series video was like a little more difficult than this one because I have so many of those to talk about. But this, I went through my whole list and I actually didn't have a ton of standalones because they're either, and even still a couple of these are like adjacent to other series, but only like one or two of them. These are all pretty much straight standalones. So let's just go ahead and dive in. I didn't particularly try to keep it at 10, but I think I ended up having like only 10 or 11 that were like top tier for this. And they kind of run the gambit. There's no historical romance on this because there just aren't any that are really standalones. They're all series. So you'll definitely see some historical romance on the series, but this is contemporary and dark romance. So let's get started. These are in no particular order, by the way, because the only books that I put in an actual ranking order was my top 10. Okay? All right. Enough explanation. Here we go. So first I want to talk about Ringmaster by Brianna Hale. This book, I actually won this in a giveaway. My friend Tamika is like the Brianna Hale queen. She will trumpet her from the rooftops. I really like Brianna Hale. I've had kind of a like, every other book kind of hits me, but the ones that hit me are real good. And the ones that don't are still good books. She usually writes pretty dark romance. However, this one isn't that dark. It still has some dark themes because she does deal with trauma. And this one has like a trigger warning for an abusive father. And we do start in a pretty traumatizing situation at the beginning. But this quickly becomes about a found family. So this is set in contemporary times. He's wearing like a leather jacket. He's super cool. This is about a modern day circus in the UK. It's a traveling circus. And the ringmaster, I forgot what his name is. Hale. Sorry, it's been a while since I read this, but I love it. The ringmaster, Hale, happens to be like riding by the heroine's house when she has to run from her father. And she has a beloved horse, and so she runs away on her horse, and he watches the father chase after her with a gun. Okay? This is the first chapter of the book. I'm just getting it out there for you, all right? And so Hale rescues her and invites her to come away at the circus. This is also a pretty big age gap because she's 17 when this starts, and he, I think, is 30. So pretty big age gap. He's very, very clear to keep things separate until a little bit after she's 18 anyway. And it's one of those two where people are actually like pushing them together by the time it happens because, sorry, my nose is itching today. Because they just have such great chemistry. So she ends up joining his circus and it's great. Like it feels like Greatest Showman vibes, but like darker. And we get to see a fun circus acts. They end up like putting an act together to share. And this is a pretty like long journey, and she finds a family and he shares this family with her. and it's just really beautiful. This is a really great book. I believe that this is a good place to start with Brianna Hale if you're not sure you want to go full like dark with her, because again, there are some dark books by her that I really like, but this one, besides that like beginning with her dad, this is just a found family story, and it's really actually sweet, and I teared up a couple times of like happiness because I love a found family so much. Next, I got to show the Rivalry, and it's very hard to get a Nikki Sloane on this list because most of hers are in series. Sorry, my ring light doesn't like it, but I'll show you these nice buns. This is like a new adult / college romance, and it is about, let me find the names, Kayla and Jay, and they meet at a friend's wedding, and like they're each a friend with like one of the bride and groom, and they end up figuring out, after they like almost hook up, they end up figuring out that they are from rival schools and like for football and other things, and it's a big deal. And she's a cheerleader for the one team and he is a player on the other team, and this rivalry is a really big deal. Jay doesn't see why they still can't be together, and she's like, dude, you have no idea the hate that we would get if the head cheerleader of this one football team was dating a guy from another. And he goes about trying to convince her that he's really worth her time. So this, if you love a hero who like really fights for her, and a little bit of pining, there's not a ton of pining because she's really into him. So it's not like he has to convince her that they should be together in like chemistry wise, but he needs to convince her in like the logistics of our life are not in favor of us. So this also, she's a really beautiful girl. She's a cheerleader, but she really struggles with some things during sex, like not trauma-wise, just pleasurable-wise. And Jay just kind of like blows that out of the water for her. And it's just so hot. Like Jay is such a confidence booster to her. He really is like fantastic. And I will say the conflict that happens in this book, like the third act conflict, is a little bananas, but it also, I felt for them both. Like I was tearing up because I was like, holy shit, this situation has legitimate and so the conflict isn't because of a misunderstanding at all. That's what I'll say. It is a legit, like, this could ruin both of our lives kind of thing. And so the decision that the place that it puts our heroine in and what it causes her to be selfless, and obviously it has to do with the rivalry, I was just so impressed. Like Nikki Sloane consistently impresses me, even when she's writing smut. Now this one is one of her, like, this is super sexy, but it doesn't overwhelm me with smut like maybe some of her other ones do. So I highly recommend this, especially if you love sports romances or college romances. I highly recommend The Rivalry. It's fantastic. It's amazing. Next, I have Love Unexpected by QB Tyler. This is a stepfather-stepdaughter romance. This is age gap, obviously. This is a mixed race couple. This book is bananas. So I was reading this during the month that we went into incest. This is not incest. There's no blood relation of these. But when you go down that track, you end up at step romances because that's usually what people find acceptable. People are just crazy. What's wrong with incest? I'm kidding. Incest is gross. I get it. But in this case, this girl, her mom married her teacher when she was like 10 years old, and she had like a crush on him as her teacher when she was a child. And so she was a little bit like mad at her mom, even though it was irrational because she was a child. Her mom dies pretty tragically at the beginning of this, and they're like the only two. They've had a very antagonistic relationship through her teens. Now, not because she has a crush on him, but because she's just like, I don't want this dude telling me what to do. And he's hot, so there's like tension, but like he's my stepdad, and it's weird. And she has a great mom. Like, so it's not a thing of like, there's some others where there's a stepdad, stepdaughter relationship, and it's because like the mom is a horrible, which it's not the smartest like way to write a story. Anyway, so her mom dies pretty tragically, and so they're spending a lot of time together. And they kind of are using each other to heal. Plus there is this like, he's becoming aware of her as a woman This has one of my favorite tropes of like bed sharing, because she's having like nightmares. So she's snuggled up with him, and like, hey, I'm not saying this is the cleanest book that I've ever read or like the, purest love story, but it is really sexy and really good. And if I were to recommend like a stepdad romance, it would be this one, because there's just a lot of like emotional stuff in it. It's great. Then I have to put Credence on here. They're like Penelope Douglas. I feel like there's so many mixed reviews, but that's because she just goes balls to the wall. And I feel like she's also one of the more well-known dark romance readers. Like she has a little more crossover appeal than some others. I think she's on my book. Is she on my mug? I don't think Credence is on my mug, but is it? It's not, but I love it. There's other Penelope Douglas on my mug. Anyway, this one is about this girl named Credence, and her parents die in kind of like a double suicide situation, and she gets sent to live with her dad's stepbrother. So these are not relations, but it is her step uncle and 2 stepbrothers that she ends up locked in a house in Colorado over the wintertime. There is a MFM scene, there is age gap scene. Basically, she hooks up in one iteration or another with all 3 of them. Not at the same time, all 3 of them. I don't know. It's hard to explain. This book is bonkers, okay? And she ends up with a person that you like least expect her to. And so there's a lot of controversy more for who she ends up with. I have a preference of who I wish she had ended up with. But when I reread this a second time, I can like see why it happened. And the author gets to do what the author wants to do, right? I just caution you of like, just because First Blood might be with one person doesn't mean that's our like HEA. But this was fantastic. So this came out way at the beginning of 2020, and it was kind of like she announced it and then it came out just like a couple weeks later, which is something I love about historical romance authors. Or not self-published authors. Wow, don't know where that came from. That is not how it works with historical romance authors. But I just really, really loved this story, and the ride. Like the ride that this book took me on was not expected. So it has to be on here. All right, so those are all the ones that I own. Now let's keep going. Another one, Black Lies by Alessandra Torre. This video, if you would like to know more about the twist of this story, I recently put up a video that is books with plot twists, because I'm not going to talk much about this one here. I also read this one near the beginning of the year, after I read some other books by Alessandra Torre, and she writes a really sexy book. This is about a billionaire tech genius and this socialite who end up having a relationship, and we find out there is some secrets about this tech genius, and our heroine is going to find them out, and they are going to make or break this couple. So that's all that I'll say, but I loved this book. Then we have a bit of a sweeter one, and we have Rafe by Rebekah Weatherspoon. I had just discovered Rebekah Weatherspoon this year. I have read so many of her books. The thing is that I always want her books to be longer, and so though she packs a punch in her book, sometimes I end up unsatisfied, especially with the breadth of story she's taking. That was not the case with Rafe. Rafe is the first book I read by her, and it's still my favorite, even though I really, really love the Beards and Bondage series. That's the one I'm talking about, where she introduces these very heavy concepts, and they're basically novella length. And I'm like, why? I love you so much. Give me more of this. But that's okay. This one is a male nanny. You probably have heard of him. And a Black female doctor who has twin girls, and she's a divorcee, and she's looking for a nanny, and she hears this guy recommended to her by a friend. And so this is the one that is connected to some other books in the series. It's not a series, but it is connected with other books in her universe. So it's pretty much the only one on this list that is like that. But yeah, and so I love this because they're straight up from the jump. Like, they're like, I'm attracted to you. Do we want to try something? And so I really appreciate that in a book. And that is something that Rebekah puts in, because I've read 5 of her books, and that's kind of in all of them, is that people are just they don't know if the sexual stuff will happen, but they're always straight up with like, I'm vibing with you. Should we try it? And I really appreciate that in a couple, that part of it. And maybe that's why her books are shorter, because there isn't that like slow burn we have to have, because they're just honest. And that can be really great. And so I really loved Rafe for, squirrel, for what it did, and for the diversity in this story, and for the sweetness of Rafe with the girls. And I love seeing a male nanny. Like, I mean, whose girl's panties does it not melt for a male nanny? I'm just wondering, right? It sends you back to like Vin Diesel and Pacifier, right? I'd have that. Then Tortured Whispers by Danielle James. So this is an incest book, y'all. Okay, it is. Danielle James, not afraid to write that. This is, surprisingly though, on Kindle Unlimited, which is funny because some books with incest you can't have, and some you can, because it's all about if someone turns your book in or not. That's how Amazon works for a lot of things. Anyway, spilling the tea with that. But this book, so this again was during the month where I was reading this. This is about an uncle and his niece, and they have been apart most of their lives, you know, so it's that case of like familial attachment syndrome. It's a syndrome, it's a thing. And he actually is a psychologist, but not for children. There's not that line that's crossed, I guess. We'll cross everything else. But I don't have this on this list just for, you know, thrill reasons. Like, this book deeply affected me. There are trigger warnings for self-harm, loss of parents, loss of like just there. This is rough. Like, look up a full trigger warning list for Tortured Whispers. But this guy comes to stay with his brother for a while because he's going to be moving to that town. And so he's getting his house built and he's going to stay with his brother and his niece while he does. Well, his brother is going through a lot with his daughter. They have, I think they recently lost her mom. I'm not sure, but the mom is gone. And then pretty early on in the book, the father dies of a heart attack. And so she becomes the ward of her uncle. And there already have been some stuff going on between the two of them before. And so then the uncle is like, I need to not be who you cling to. Because being a psychologist, he's aware that, like, I already know we had some things happening between the two of us. We need to not, like, let it continue. Like, you need therapy. But of course, things happen. And again, like I said, there's a trigger warning for self-harm. And it isn't just mentioned, like, it's on page self-harm. And so, but what I loved about it is that he does get her to a psychiatrist. Like, that isn't so many times in books like this where there is, it's like you let your significant other, or I mean, yeah, be your therapy. And I'm a big proponent for talking to someone, for talk therapy, or you know, whatever you need to talk through your issues. Like, you're not alone. Don't try to do it on your own. And so that's what I really loved about this book, is that he, being a psychologist himself, was like, we need to get you to see someone. I'm going to get you to one of my colleagues and you need to talk, because otherwise I'm going to need to put you in a place that will take care of you, because he can see her self-harm tendencies. So this book is very emotional. If any of those things I mentioned are a trigger for you, like, this won't be for you, but it was very affecting to me. And I had to put it on this list because it just ripped my heart out, and it was so powerful. It was so good. It was great. Then I have All Things Burn by Jodie Slaughter. I've talked about this book a ton too. This book is kind of mafia adjacent. This is also a diverse book. This is a Black woman, strong, powerful woman, but she's being stalked by an ex-boyfriend, and he is escalating, and she doesn't have enough to get, you know, even if she did get a restraining order only helps you if the person you put it against listens to it, okay? Because a restraining order is just a piece of paper. It doesn't keep someone from getting close to you. It only means that there can be repercussions if they do. You know what I mean? And so he's escalating. And so her cousin has connections with the mob, and he knows the information of the mob's, like, hitman. And so he gives her the info of this hitman. And when the hitman agrees to meet her, he is instantly attracted to her. And so he finds ways to spend more time with her and learn about this person that she's asking him to kill. And it becomes clear that he's like, yeah, I'm going to take this guy out for you. But he still finds more reasons to spend time with her, and there ends up being a romance between these two. And it is really good. I love this book so much. It's great. Then there is Transcendence by Shay Savage. This book is a caveman time-traveling romance. So it's also built, like some people call it historical. I don't know. It's really hard to place because this book is from the POV of the caveman, okay? And he is not the same level, like, brain function as Homo sapiens. He is, like, a previous iteration, right? And we only know what's going on through his point of view, but we as the reader can tell that a woman has come back from the future because of how she's dressed and her bearing and stuff. And so he rescues her. She has come back through time. We don't know how or how it happened. And he rescues her, and he was on the brink of death. He is alone. He lost his family, his people in a fire. He was able to take some of the fire so that he has his fire going, because fire is life. And he rescues this girl, and he's like, oh my gosh, this is my mate. I'm going to take care of her. And it's beautiful. Like, I don't want to say anything else. It's so hard setting this novel up for people, but really just give it a try. Just take my recommendation as enough and give this book a try. Okay? Like, that's all I can say. All right. And then the last one I want to mention on this list is Not So Nice Guy by R.S. Gray. I've said this in other videos. I've had an up and down relationship with R.S. Gray. Not everything she's written has worked for me. But this is my favorite one of hers. This is a Friends to Lovers. They're both teachers. They're the same age. And they've been best friends for a few years now, since they both started at this school together. And they do everything together. They have had different significant others at different times, but this is kind of the first time that they're both single. And when a new teacher starts at the school, that female teacher, like, asks if the guy is single, and the friend says yes. And this really pisses the guy off, because he's like, I have been waiting to make my move, and then you just stuck me off at the knees. So he takes this as a challenge, and he is straight up. He's like, I'm going to woo you. Like, you're my best friend. We know everything about each other. My parents want me to be with you. I want to be with you. Let's make it happen. And it's fantastic. Like, there's some hijinks that are a little ridiculous, but I love it. And I love it even more that they're both teachers. Like, there's nothing forbidden about this besides the fact that at their school, they're not supposed to be any, like, fraternization. But it's not, like, taboo, and it's not that anything's keeping them apart, but, like, this rule. And the guy's just like, girl, I'll find a different school to work at or something if I have to. Like, you are my shot at a happily ever after. And I love a hero who pines. There is some mutual pining, but it doesn't last for very long because, again, like, the point of this book is that he's like, girl, I'm going to woo you like nobody's business because I know everything you love. I know everything about you, and I'm going to win you. And I love it. I love it. So, though I have an up and down relationship with R.S. Gray, this is my favorite book of hers. And when she gets it right, when she hits it right, it is fabulous. And everyone will have a different favorite of hers. What's great is, like, hers are, like, kind of connected in certain ways, but for the most part, these are all standalones. You can pick up any R.S. Gray and get started, and she has, like, every trope you've ever heard of. One of her books fits into it, which is so much fun. So, yeah. Well, there you go. Those are my favorite standalones of the year. I hope that this was fun for you. I hope this is great where if you just want to hit it and quit it, you don't want to get sucked into having to read possibly, 5, 6, 15 books. You won't have to. You can just pick up one of these babies right here. I always forget to mention this, but I do have many lists of my favorites listed in my Amazon storefront. I don't get like straight, I get very, very tiny like commissions if you end up buying through the link of that. But mostly I mention it because it's always in the bottom of every of my video. And if you're wanting to like look through my favorite tropes or what I'm currently reading and loving, you can always find that in the bottom of my videos in my Amazon storefront to just kind of see. And anything you purchase through that link, again, like I get a tiny commission for it, even if it is like a Kindle Unlimited or something. Okay, so there you go. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're enjoying the end of the year content. If you're interested, maybe check out channel memberships to spend more time with me outside of the platform. As always, there's links to the Romance Booktube Discord and my personal Discord, so check those out. And also, shout out to a new member. We have Lauren 3D. Lauren, thank you so much for joining the channel. Make sure to check out, your name will be in the credits for this one, and I'm so happy to have you at the Fated Friend level. Thanks so much, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.